All right, today we're going to be starting chapter 7, Exponents and Powers. In this chapter, you're going to learn all you need to know about exponents and powers and how to apply them to word problems, real life problems, and of course, mathematical problems. All right, so the first thing we're going to do today is we are going to talk about scientific notation. Scientific notation is simply a shorter way to write very large or very, very small numbers. This is mostly used in the scientific world or especially by engineers or um, basically any scientist. If they're working with microorganisms, they're going to use really, really, really small numbers, and oftentimes it's easier to write them in scientific notation, okay? Or if you're talking about space and you're talking about really, really, really big things, you're going to also want to use scientific notation. All right, so it is written as a product of two factors in the form of a, being a number, times 10 to the nth power, okay? A always has to be bigger than 1 but less than 10, okay? So for example, 8.2 times 10 to the third power, okay? That would be a proper way to show scientific notation. However, 23 times 10 to the fifth power is not okay because that 23 is above 10. All right, simple enough. All right, so we're going to label some of these as either being scientific notation or not being scientific notation. Okay, so this first one, 49.21 times 10 to the seventh power is a no. All right, but 3.4 times 10 to the sixth power is a yes. 10 times 10 to the third power. That's a no. It needs to be less than 10. It could be 9.9999999, but it cannot be 10. Okay? All right, now 6 times 10 to the negative second power. This is a yes, even though you might think, wait a second, Mrs. Young, the exponent is a negative number. It still is, in fact, scientific notation. All right. All right, I think you guys get the drift. All right, so when writing a number in scientific notation, as I said before, you can write the number as a really, really big number in scientific notation or a really small number. All right, you want to take your number, okay, and your decimal point in this particular number, 29,400,000, is here at the end. And you're going to swoop. You're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now the reason I did 7 is because I want to land so my number is between 1 and 10, okay? So 2.94 is between 1 and 10. All right. So if you notice, I'm just taking my number here and putting it in decimal form, multiplying it by 10, and then this integer up here, the exponent, is going to be 7. This tells you how many times to swoop it. Okay, so if you were to go back if they were to give you just this scientific notation and you were to go back to a regular number, you would start at the decimal point and you would swoop 7 times and you will get this number. Okay, so because my number is positive, I know my number is getting bigger. On the other hand, when I'm talking about a number that's smaller, all right, the exponent is actually going to be negative. So just like we did before, we're going to start at our decimal point. In this case, we have to swoop to the right, okay? So you need to go 1, 2, 3, land so I have my positive, or my integer between 1 and 10. So I have 7.63 times 10. Now this is where you need to be careful. Because we are dealing with a really small number, we're going to make it negative 3. All right, so let's try another one. So in this case, if we were going the opposite way, we have 5.98 times 10 to the 6th power, and we want to write that in standard notation or as a normal number. I'm going to take this and I'm going to swoop it 6 times to make my number bigger, in this case to the right. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to add zeros in these unknown areas. I'm going to say 5, 9, 8. And here I have 1, 2, 3, 4 zeros. All right, so then my big old number is 5,980,000. All right, now the exact opposite when we have a negative number. So now we're going to move to the left. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So my new number is going to be 0 0.1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 zeros. And then end with my 2, 3. So then this is my really, really, really small number. All right. Okay, so going along with the same idea of scientific notation, when we're working with scientific notation, they're often going to ask you to order scientific notation, usually from smallest to largest, but make sure you always read the directions to make sure it's not largest to smallest. Okay? In order to do that, we look at the powers first. The larger the power, the larger the number. Makes sense. So for example, I have these 4 numbers. Look at my powers. I have 41, 49, 35, 41. So I'm just going to automatically start putting some where I know that they need to go. I know this 35 is going to be the smallest, and this 49 is going to be the largest. But in this case, I have 2 powers of 41. So in this case, we need to actually look down at the integer out in front. In this case, 7.89 is definitely smaller than 8.4, so we're going to order it as so. All right, pretty simple. But be careful. Make sure the numbers are in scientific notation before ordering them. Oftentimes, what's going to happen is they are going to try and trick you, and they are going to put a number that is in scientific notation and a number that is not in scientific notation in order to try and mess you up, basically. So in this case, if we were to just look at the powers, we would automatically think that this one is larger because it's 7 compared to this 5. But in fact, if we were to turn this into correct scientific notation, by moving my decimal point where it should be, between the 8 and the 1, so we have 8.1 times 10. And because I took away 2 spots, I'm actually going to subtract those 2 spots from my exponent. So in this case, it's going to be to the 5th power. So then instead of this being the larger number, this is actually the larger number. Okay? All right. So what I want you guys to do is write these in scientific notation and then order them from least to greatest. That's your assignment tonight. Okay? Write these in the correct scientific notation and then order them from least to greatest. All right, make sure you guys bring any questions to class tomorrow. Otherwise, have a good evening, and I will see you guys then.